Do it. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our August 21st, 2023 Community Conversations call. My name is Charlotte Otero. I'm the community strategist at Maddie's Fund. I'm subbing in today as co-host for one of our colleagues who has been impacted by the tropical storm that's hitting parts of Mexico, California, Nevada, and Arizona. I'm from San Diego, so I know that we are not built for storms like this. So I'm definitely thinking about all of the people and pets recently impacted by natural disasters, and I'm hoping everyone is staying safe. We've got a great panel lined up for today. So in order to give our panelists the maximum amount of time today, we ask that you share your national updates for the group in the chat. We'll make sure your national updates get included on the Maddie's Pet Forum discussion thread for today's call. So if you've got any national updates, feel free to drop them in the chat. I'll now toss it over to my co-host, Irene, to introduce our speakers.
Thank you, Charlotte. Hi, everyone. I'm Irene Chance-Wong, Senior Grant Specialist at Maddie's Fund. Today's presentation is called Pets and People, Safe Together and Connected with BestyBnB. Our speakers are Atlas Gatton, Director of Community Programs at Kansas City Pet Project, and from BestyBnB, Zoe Agnew-Svoboda, Director of Engagement and Program Development, as well as co-founders Andy Bond and Matt Krentz. Very recently, BestyBnB was awarded the 2023 Human Animal Bond Research Institute's Innovation Award for Pet Inclusive Infrastructure. The Hobry Innovation Awards recognize companies and organizations with innovative products and programs designed to advance the human-animal bond and create a more pet-friendly society. So without further ado, presenters, please take it away.
Thank you so much, Irene. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Bear with me for one moment. All right. So what you guys should see is a slide that has a little overview of BestyBnB's platform. If you don't see that, please let me know. BestyBnB is an online platform that was built specifically for both animal welfare organizations and social service agencies, such as domestic violence agencies, mental health centers, and groups advocating for those who are experiencing houselessness or are unsheltered. The platform helps agencies when they are working with pet owners in crisis to create crisis care and safety net programs, while also enabling programs for agencies with no prior pet experience or pet supportive program in place. So for domestic violence agencies or social service agencies who have never provided pet advocacy in the past, BestyBnB is a great way for them to immediately be able to provide pet services quite simply and quite quickly. BestyBnB provides the ability to easily locate and manage temporary housing for pets until they can be reunited with their owner. We are not a direct service provider, and we do not provide direct services to clients who are experiencing houselessness. Instead, we partner with expert agencies to provide those supportive services. And so when a client reaches out to BestyBnB directly, we refer them to one of our agency partners. I'm going to share a little bit about my background and how I got to be here today. But my background is in both animal welfare and domestic violence advocacy. Prior to working in domestic violence, I started my career in animal welfare and have been working in animal welfare for about 14 years now, which is pretty wild. And back when I first got started, I worked as an intake and adoptions manager at Casey Pet Project, actually in 2012 when they very first opened. And one particular owner surrender will always kind of live in my mind. A man came to the shelter with a chocolate lab. She was an older gal, very sweet, very calm, and had a little bit of gray on her chin. He was surrendering the dog for his parents. His father had made the decision they could no longer keep this dog. And the son handed me this beautiful handwritten letter, kind of on wrinkled lined paper from his mother. And the letter described how wonderful and loyal the dog was and shared stories of how the dog showed affection. And it was very clear that this dog was loved dearly and that the owner, the mother, was devastated to owner surrender. I couldn't really understand why the pet that was loved so dearly would be owner surrendered. I asked the son if it would be possible to call his mother, who wasn't there with him, so I could talk about other options to prevent this owner surrender. And when I got on the phone, she immediately started crying. I looked at her son and he said, "It's my dad. He won't let her keep it. There's really nothing that we can do." And back then I didn't really understand domestic violence or the way that, the nature and dynamics of domestic violence work the way I do now. But I did kind of worry about this family. I instinctively knew that maybe there was some coercion going on, that the owners were being forced to surrender their pet when they didn't want to. And I did worry that further harm might be happening in their home. But I didn't really know how to address it. I didn't have the training to ask about abuse in the home, and I didn't know what resources to connect the family with. Now, having that experience and the training that I have in both social services and animal welfare, I'm far more equipped. And had BestyBnB existed at that time, we would have been able to possibly prevent that owner surrender and get the owner connected to social services to make sure that the owner and the family was safe. So that's just a brief background about me. After working in animal welfare, have worked in many different roles: program management, animal care, vet teching. I then went into social services, where I managed the pet advocacy program for about 8 years at a domestic violence agency here in Kansas City, Missouri. Using all of that experience, I support agencies in my current role as Director of Engagement and Program Development at BestyBnB to create or expand their pet advocacy programs to remove or to prevent owner surrenders, and also remove the barriers that pets can create to social services. And I'm going to pass it over to Andy and Matt to introduce themselves.
Thanks very much, Zoe. It's a real honor to be here. My name is Andy Bond. I use he, him pronouns. I'm a co-founder of BestyBnB along with Matt Krentz. First off, just wanted to echo for anyone that's on the call in the path of that storm or dealing with the fires in Hawaii or the extreme heat in other parts of the country like we're experiencing here in Kansas City. We do hope everyone's staying safe, and we are thinking of you. We understand what additional pressures that puts on people and pets. So please know that we are thinking of you and hoping everybody's safe. A little bit about us and how we got here. Matt and I come from very distinct backgrounds, neither of which were in animal welfare or social services. And I saw some wonderfully familiar names and faces as people were joining the call. So if you've heard this, bear with me. But our personal relationship dates back to our time in college. We met very early on our freshman year at Rockhurst University here in Kansas City, became very fast friends, and then spent a lot of years just supporting each other in very different paths that we took from there. Matt is a filmmaker and a writer and a creator, and Rockhurst didn't have a film program. So being the problem solver that he is, he went to work for Robert Redford and surrounded himself with some of the world's best filmmakers and created his own film school. So working in film and technology when he was in Utah and California in the writers labs, it was always fun to hear about those experiences. And then when he wasn't in the labs, we actually lived together in St. Louis, where I was attending law school at St. Louis University. More about that when I came to my senses and became a recovering attorney here shortly. But that was it. We just never really anticipated that we would work together in any professional capacity until 2013 rolled around, and I had the opportunity to leave private practice to help fund and found a startup making a very large piece of technology for the entertainment industry. And in order to build that platform the way that it needed to be built, I knew we needed an expert in entertainment. And luckily, Matt was up for that challenge. And I called him one day, and in the span of about 3 weeks, he moved his family to Kansas City, and we started building that technology. So 6.5 years went by as we built that company and built that technology for very large studios as well as on-set filmmakers. Mention that only because that's really where we learned to build software that, while it was very large, It had to be ultra secure and also very user friendly. Otherwise, the industry wasn't going to adopt it. Fast forward a little more to 2018, that platform was acquired. Matt and I quickly made the decision that we wanted to do something else rather than continue working for the new group that acquired the software. But we didn't know what that was going to be. And then Matt called me one day while he was listening to our local NPR affiliate here in Kansas City, and really said, you know, I think we should listen to what this person is saying. That person was the director of housing and grants at one of the local domestic violence agencies here in the Kansas City metropolitan, who is now one of our agency partners. But this person was just talking about the biggest barriers that their agency faced. And it was when they said that the biggest barrier was that 50% of the time that a person calls their hotline seeking help and they find out they can't bring their pet, they hang up the phone and choose to stay in that life-threatening and violent situation. And that really just stopped us in our tracks. The more we dove into that, the more we felt compelled to try to be part of a solution. And when we felt like we were onto something with this platform that is now BestyBnB, we really knew that if we were going to build it, we had a responsibility to build it the way that agencies would need it. So Matt and I committed to setting everything else that we were working on aside and making this our full-time mission. We spent a little over a year traveling the country, meeting with agencies in Southern California, in Central Illinois, in the state of Maine, trying to understand the breadth and scope of this crisis. And it was then that we learned through that process that it wasn't unique. This barrier was not unique to domestic violence. And in fact, it was a barrier that was faced by animal welfare organizations and advocates, all types of social services agencies, including those domestic violence agencies, but mental health providers, substance use and treatment facilities, veterans organizations, those advocating for the houseless and unsheltered. And so really, to kind of make a long story a little bit shorter, what we were able to do through the course of that year and gathering requirements and understanding both the needs of animal welfare organizations as well as social services agencies is build a platform that we're going to highlight today, one that can work for both the types of animal welfare organizations who are already experts in pet advocacy and may or may not have a crisis care program in place. And then at the other end of that spectrum, we wanted to make sure that it worked for organizations that had no prior pet advocacy, crisis care, or safety net programs at all. So we wanted to really enhance it where it did exist and enable it where it didn't. So we started very quietly and very small here in the Kansas City metropolitan, first with 7 domestic violence agencies, then with 3 mental health providers and 2 animal welfare organizations. And the intention there was really to build a platform and a blueprint for how this can work and try to bridge gaps between animal welfare and social services and really become a community engaged effort so that it's at its most powerful. Once we had that blueprint ready to go and really refined and honed, that's when we started expanding outside of the Kansas City metropolitan area. We're very proud and very excited to say that we're now with 28 different agencies in 8 different states. To date, we've been able to provide over 2,500 safe nights, and 100% of those safe nights have ended in return to owner. So our return to owner rate is still at 100%, which we're very proud of. And we're just looking for ways to engage more communities so that we can have more impact. We know a lot of you are very in tune and very aware of these issues. There's a testimonial video that some of our close agency partners helped us create that's in the forum. So we encourage everyone to check that out if you're curious to know more about what's going on in the day-to-day of these social services organizations who are looking for ways to collaborate with the wonderful people that are advocating on the animal welfare side. So that's a little bit about us, a little bit about how we got here, and we're always available to answer questions after this in the forum, whatever is most convenient for you all. Please make sure, don't hesitate to reach out, because we'd love to chat more. So Zoe, I'll pass it back to you.
Thanks, Andy. All right. So when you go to BestyBnB.com, you'll find our landing page, which really looks like a site where anyone can book a pet sitter, which is true. We do have a consumer-facing website that does allow pet caregivers to provide pet sitting for the general public. But what's not so noticeable is the large set of tools that only agencies with a BestyBnB account can access. And you can access that by clicking the login button here. When agencies have a BestyBnB account, they can access a network of pet caregivers that have been specifically trained and curated to support nonprofit and social service agencies, as well as a subset of tools to be able to manage your pet data for a new program. So how does BestyBnB work? When a client is reaching out for crisis support, they reach out to animal services and say that they have a pet that they need help with. The staff member at the animal services will log into their BestyBnB account using either a desktop or mobile app to do a quick search and locate a pet caregiver. One of the things that I love about BestyBnB is that it's accessible wherever you are. So if you're out in the field working with a pet owner and you have your phone on you, you're able to access BestyBnB and book a pet caregiver from wherever you are. This is what the pet caregiver or your login looks like. So this is your main dashboard. And you'll see that this is just test information. So this is not actually real client information. All of the information that is listed here is completely confidential to your own login. Only staff members at your agency will have access to the confidential client information listed here. What you'll see is that you have access to be able to provide contact information for the pet owner, emergency contact information if they have it, and their pet information, as well as a signed contract. This contract is really important because it waives liability for the pet and the pet owner in case something were to happen. This also gives your agency authority to make decisions regarding the pet if the pet owner is unavailable. And in the rare instance that the pet is abandoned, which, like Andy said, we have not run into before, but if that were to happen, you are able to make whatever decisions you feel are necessary to ensure that the pet's is being cared for. And then the real bulk of the site is with these three dots, which are the action menu. You'll click here and you'll be able to navigate to our pet caregiver network. This is an example of what the pet caregiver network looks like in Kansas City. If you were to go to BestyBnB.com without logging into a BestyBnB account, you would only find folks who have signed up to provide pet care for the general public and who are charging consumer rates. After logging into your BestyBnB account, it will give you access to vetted and trained pet caregivers who have specifically signed up to provide care for social services and often will provide that care at a significantly discounted rate. What's also helpful about this map is that you can determine where it's safe for the pet to stay. For example, when I worked at a domestic violence agency, I'd work with survivors who'd say, you know, it's not safe for me or my animal to be in Independence. And so if I was looking for a pet caregiver, I might look for a pet caregiver that's in the Olathe area or in the Gladstone area. It's easy to click and drag this map so you can search for a pet caregiver in any location that you're looking for. This is very similar to how Airbnb works, which is very user-set friendly. You'll also see this where you'll be able to gather a little bit more information about the pet caregiver before clicking into their account profile. I love these little icons because this gives us quick at a glance brief information about the pet caregivers and what kind of care they're able to provide. So this pet caregiver is comfortable providing medication. They've gone through a background check. This pet caregiver can provide transportation. And so if you're looking for a pet caregiver who is you need someone to provide medication, you can go click with Karen. this is what the pet caregiver's profile looks like. Now, this is just a screenshot, so I'm not able to scroll down and show you the whole profile. But if I were able to scroll down, you would see a more detailed list of what Leslie's home environment looks like, what kind of pets she's able to provide care for, what kind of services she's able to provide, and a brief kind of paragraph of kind of what her home environment is like, what day-to-day looks like for her, how often she's home, what her work schedule is like, that sort of thing. These pictures that Leslie has provided are Leslie's personal pets. Leslie and all of our pet caregivers know that it is not appropriate to share any confidential information, which includes the pet's photos on social media and also on their pet caregiver profile. We take confidentiality extremely serious. And so we make sure to train all of our pet caregivers to know that these clients are oftentimes receiving these services to seek safety or may not want their personal information out there. And so we want to make sure that our pet caregivers are not, splashing the pet's picture all over social media. Oh, before I move on, I wanted to point out that here is the booking, how you would create a BestyBnB booking. And so what you'll do is very similar to an Airbnb stay. You'll select a start date. And if you know how long you're going to be providing these services, you can go ahead and select an end date. Perhaps it's just they need 2 weeks until their permanent supportive housing comes through, or it could be that they need 3 days while they're waiting for the order of protection to come through. But sometimes we also don't know how long a pet owner is going to need these services for. And so what we created is an ongoing stay. And what this will do when you click this box is, one, alert the pet caregiver that this stay is going to be longer than the average pet sitting gig. And then two, it also rebooks every 7 days. So it's not something that you have to continuously think about. If the pet stay ends before those 7 days end, you will be automatically refunded. And again, when you're creating a booking, you'll always get a total. So you know exactly how much your agency will be charged. So you can determine whether or not that's within your budget. This is the 5-step process that our pet caregivers go through in order to become a BestyBnB pet caregiver. First, they list their details, like what their home environment is like, what kind of pets they're able to care for, and then they set their rates and preferences. And this is where they can determine whether or not they're going to charge a small fee or donate their services. Our pet caregivers also have the option to charge a consumer rate fee for our consumer-facing website and donate their services to the social service website. They then go through our training videos, which talks about confidentiality, animal care, how to safely introduce a pet into a home environment. And then they provide us with references, and the final step is a comprehensive background check. I'm really proud of the background check that we're able to provide. It goes all the way down to the municipal and county level to ensure that there is no harm to humans or harm to animal on their record. And most of those charges are going to be on the municipal and county level. And so that's why it's really important that we found a background check that checks that as well. Then once an agency has selected a pet caregiver, the pet caregiver meets the staff member at a safe location. And when a booking request is sent to the pet caregiver, they receive an email and text notification. We found that typically pet caregivers will respond within an hour, sometimes shorter. It really depends on the time of day that you're sending the request, but most of our pet caregivers are really prompt to respond. When a booking has been placed, the pet caregiver and the staff member will coordinate a safe location to pick up the pet. Some agencies we work with have a confidential location, like our domestic violence agency, and so they use a third-party location, such as an animal welfare partner, for the pickup drop-off of the pet. Some of our animal welfare organizations are totally fine with the pet caregiver coming on site to pick up the pet, so it doesn't need to be a third-party location. We leave that completely up to the agency, but we do provide best practices and help our agency partners create policy and procedures. Then the client's pet will stay with the BestyBnB pet caregiver while the client receives crisis support through an agency, or just gets back up on their feet on their own if they're doing their own self-advocacy. And the client can receive frequent pictures and updates from their pet caregiver on BestyBnB's safe and confidential platform until they're reunited with their pet. This is my absolute favorite part of BestyBnB, and also why I think we have a 100% reunification rate. So this confidential communication platform was really created to maintain the bond between the client and their pet, to make them feel like they're still a significant part of their pet's care. And also it makes it is easy for the pet caregiver to really learn more about the pet's needs and care. I ran a foster program before BestyBnB was around at the domestic violence agency I worked at. And most of my job was to be a walkie-talkie. The pet foster home would ask me a question like, hey, I have this question about the pet's care. I'm not really sure how to handle it. I unfortunately do not know that much about the pet because I'm not the pet owner. And so then I would have to find the pet owner, call the pet owner, ask the question, and then relay that information back to the foster home. It took a lot of time. And so this completely removes that work, which is so great. And also really keeps that pet owner engaged in their pet's care. You'll see that Colleen, our test client, never knows who the pet caregiver is. She just sees a pet caregiver icon. And the same thing is said for the pet caregiver as well. The pet caregiver is never going to know who the client is. They're just going to see a client icon. And there's always a code of conduct to make sure that the communication is appropriate and that confidentiality is paramount. So we want to make sure that no identifying information or inappropriate images or texts are shared. Your agency or the staff member facilitating this care always has an overview of this communication. And if at any time you feel like this communication is inappropriate, you can easily remove access. What's not showed on this slide is also the opportunity for the pet owner to save images and videos to their own album so that they always have access to the pictures, that they can easily pull it up whenever they're feeling like they really miss their pet. So the benefits about BestyBnB really include, when you have a subscription to BestyBnB, they include unlimited admin accounts, client profiles, and pet profiles. So when you subscribe, every staff member at your agency could have a BestyBnB login if needed. You can provide BestyBnB logins to all clients who are receiving services to BestyBnB, and it's also a great way to manage pet data for grant reporting and access to reports for financial tracking as well. Your subscription also would include access to our pet caregiver network. We found that more than 50% of pet caregivers provide their services at a significantly discounted rate. And the average night stay is only around $13 per night, which we found is about an 86% savings, potentially more, compared to a traditional boarding facility. There's never a cost to clients. We ask that agencies cover the cost to the nightly stay. And we work with development teams and marketing teams to provide digital marketing tools to increase donor engagement. We found that on average, pet advocacy programs are able to bring in more funding than other services because people are really able to identify with the idea of not wanting to leave their pet home or not wanting to leave their pet behind. And we worked with a social service agency, a domestic violence agency here in Kansas City, who did a capital campaign around their BestyBnB services. And they were able to bring in 6 figures. Now, only a small portion of that is going to go towards BestyBnB. The rest of that will be able to spread out between other programs in the agency. We will also work to create relationships between animal welfare and social service agencies. And we work with the Humane Society of the United States to connect agencies to local animal welfare organizations and for our social service partners. And it's very possible that I've connected with folks on this call doing that work. And then in addition, we also support you to create policy and procedures by offering best practices. We provide technical assistance when pet circumstances pop up that you're unsure of how to handle. I have pretty much seen it all. So I'm happy to use my experience to help you navigate new circumstances that pop up for you. And then also we provide 24-hour tech support when accessing your BestyBnB account. As Andy mentioned, we're in 8 states already. We're actively seeking new agency partners and would love to expand our network even further than we already have. But we're really proud of the 2,500 safe nights that we've already provided and the 28 agency partners that we have so far. And one of our partners is Casey Pet Project, and I'm going to hand it off to Atlas Gatton to talk a little bit about the work we're doing to prevent owner surrenders in Kansas City.
Thank you, Zoe. Hi, everyone. My name is Atlas Gatton. I'm the Director of Community Programs at Casey Pet Project. My pronouns are they, them. I am super excited to be on this call with you all today and to talk about the incredible work that is happening in Kansas City, thanks to these fine folks at BestyBnB. For Casey Pet Project, historically, when we were trying to build some of these community partnerships with human social service agencies, we found that there was a lot of red tape and a lot of hesitation in implementing and onboarding programs that were really focused on pet advocacy and pet care. For the shelter, not having full visibility into what some of those barriers and challenges look like for human support agencies, there was a little bit of frustration that would happen because ultimately the agencies would look to the shelter for the resolve of some of these pet related issues. For Casey Pet Project, I'm sure a lot of you all on this call are experiencing some of the same things that we are. We've seen a 60% increase in intake over the past few years. Increased requests for owner surrender. Our capacity for care has worn incredibly thin. We're dealing with staffing issues and just overall just trying to do everything for everyone, including providing adequate care for the animals at our shelter locations. So for us, really looking to do anything above and beyond what we're already doing for 16,000 plus animals each year, it wasn't realistic. And us asking the human support agencies to do anything beyond what they're doing is equally unrealistic. What's beautiful about BestyBnB is that it really helps bridge that gap and fill a gigantic hole in what is available to pet families in our community, and doing it in a way that's equally beneficial. We really truly get to lean on the human support agencies for their expertise, and they get to kind of lean on us for the areas that we excel in as well. But also we're preparing a whole different industry for pet advocacy, and to understand that truly pets in need are a byproduct of a people-centric issue. We can't help pets without helping people first. And in order for us to do that, we have to understand our ecosystem. We have to have these productive and helpful, beneficial relationships with these human support agencies. And we have to be able to collaborate on that level. I talked a little bit about some of our challenges, and Zoe, you nailed it when you said when you were managing the foster program, just the administrative time that happens in communicating needs both to the pet owner and your foster. We do have a foster-based temporary care program at Casey Pet Project called Home Away from Home. And I'll be the first to say that the skill set that is required to do that work, it doesn't just organically exist. To be both a foster manager and a human case manager is really quite the job. And it really is, it could potentially be 2 full-time positions to meet all of the needs that we see. And asking one person to do that is really challenging. So our case manager is incredible. They do such an amazing job, but they're so limited because of the amount of time it takes to be both foster manager and case manager. We have a 93% reunification rate with our foster-based program, which is still pretty incredible. It's not the 100% that BestyBnB has, but I think the thing that BestyBnB does really well is this engagement piece. Not only are they keeping their caregivers engaged on an ongoing basis, they supply us, the organization, with a ton of tools and resources so that we can also get our foster network signed up as caregivers with BestyBnB. They get monthly newsletters. The engagement piece between the pet owner and the foster is invaluable. I think it is so hard to be able to provide that without BestyBnB, especially in real time. It truly causes a disconnect in access for the pet owner to just check in on their pet. For our program, historically, if a pet owner said, "Hey, I'm really curious, how's Lucky doing today?" Sometimes it could be a day or two before we would have that update back to them. And I think we can all agree that the human animal bond is incredibly important in all of the work that we do, and being able to offer a resource such as this that gives them direct access without any barriers to their pet during a time of hardship and crisis is incredible. You know, I think looking at our owner surrender data and our intake data and seeing that, I think it's, what was it, around, I want to say it's like over 40% of our owner surrender requests are due to housing. We don't have a ton of pet-friendly housing or pet-friendly human support services in Kansas City. And I think, you know, looking at just what we're seeing for intake, being able to divert some of those owner surrender requests because of the partnership with BestyBnB and the human support agencies that entails. If we're looking at capacity for care, we're looking at all of the things in which are challenging us as an organization. It's an incremental solve. It's not going to change the world tonight. It's not going to change the world tomorrow, but it is changing our community one day at a time in ways that I never thought were imaginable. And it makes the work that we do, which is very physically demanding and emotionally challenging, that much better, right? Like we get to see in real time the connection and the bond being honored, and the work that we are doing. I have like so many things I could say about it, but I only have like 10 minutes, so I'm going to try to keep it short. You know, it's just really incredible to think about. Really partnering with BestyBnB, I think, truly helps us alleviate some of our pressure points while investing in both an obtainable and manageable solution, right? Again, that incremental, it helps us fill the gap in access to temporary care for pet families. We're also able to prevent owner relinquishment, not just due to landlord issues and temporary loss of home, but also for hospitalization, medical treatment, domestic violence, and intimate partner abuse. And we're learning and gaining skills to actually help navigate some of those challenges with the pet families that we serve. And I think, Zoe, you touched on it a little bit too, with some of the grants and things like that. For us, the very first challenge was, well, how are we going to pay for this? You know, we have limited financial resources, just like every nonprofit and every animal shelter and every, you know, human support agency. And when you look at the average cost for BestyBnB, it's anywhere. Some caregivers do waive their fees for that stay, but you know, $8 to $13. Our average stay in home away from home is 55 days. So it's an investment of $440 to like $715. Like truly substantially less than what you would pay at a boarding facility. But we're paying $29 a day on average just for pets that are sheltering with us for their daily care, the staff time, medical care. And this is not only an investment that we are already making when the pet is surrendered to the shelter, but we are committed to honoring that human animal bond, and it's the right thing to do. And it's equal use of resources. And with onboarding this program, we have seen that we are now eligible for grants that we weren't eligible for before. And it's pretty incredible to see the amount of funding and the amount of support that is available for programs like this. Anything to help humans and helping humans keep their pets. People really do see themselves in the human animal bond and really want to support that in whatever way they can. I will just kind of wrap up by saying, while it can feel like a really big onboarding of a new initiative or new program, BestyBnB, in my experience, has made it seamless. Not only have they given us all of the marketing tools that we need, the training that we don't always have the opportunity to give to our fosters, just anything and everything. We're sharing data, we're looking at what's happening in the shelter. I'm always eager to hear what they're doing as well, but they have made it incredibly seamless for us to get involved and to create more pet advocates in our community. And I just want to thank them for all that they do. I absolutely adore them as humans and as colleagues. And again, if this is something that you're interested in as an organization, you know, KC Pet Project, again, we take in 16,000 animals a year. It's anywhere from, you know, 40 to 80 animals each day. We're getting over 475 requests for support and owner surrender every month. And we do that with a very small and mighty team. It may seem like an insurmountable thing to take on, but I'm telling you, it is doable because this team will support you 100% of the way.
Thank you so much, Atlas, for those amazing kind words. And we are so proud to partner with KC Pet Project and so impressed by the amazing work that they do here in Kansas City. I especially have just been so thrilled to watch them grow, having known where they started, having worked there and seeing where they are now. KC Pet Project is so innovative, and they just really, follow up on their word to make sure that people are able to keep their pets and that pets are safe and secure. So now I'm going to open it up to any questions that folks might have. Thank you so much for this platform and for us being able to take time to share with you and connect with you. And we really do hope to work with each and every one of you to support pet owners in crisis and to prevent owner surrenders.
Thanks, Zoe. We did get a few questions in the chat, so I'm happy to lift those up. Maria asks, is this available offline too, if you're in an area with no service?
Oh, that's a great question. I'm going to go ahead and let the tech experts answer that, Matt and Andy.
Can you all hear me? I think I might be. Okay, I had a notification.
Sorry, real quick, Zoe, you might want to stop sharing your screen in a minute. Thank you.
So the full functionality of the platform does require access and connection in terms of being able to communicate with pet caregivers and that sort of thing. However, if you are in the field and in an area that doesn't have good service and you're creating a pet profile, for instance, if you already have that up on your mobile app and you're entering data in there, and then you can save that when you get back to a connection, you can do it that way. You can also just, if you're doing it in notes or anything else on your phone, if there's other ways that you handle those situations, and then just be able to paste those in there. A lot of the, and this is what you really get in the full demo, is to see just how quickly and easily the mobile apps make creating those pet profiles, creating those client profiles that are associated with the pet profiles, a lot of just yes, no questions and those sorts of things. And then you can be able to access the caregiver network. But the way that those tools are created in order to get those notifications and other things to our pet caregivers, there is a connection that's required there.
Okay, great. Thank you. And Gail asks, what is the process or cost for a shelter to partner?
Yeah, another great question. So I'll take the first part first. The cost. So we've done a great deal to try to help our agency partners be good stewards of their dollars. So we've created a very unique model where we bifurcated the cost structure. So there is an annual subscription that is $7,500 to access the suite of tools that we just kind of barely touched on at a very high level today. Right now, we are also committed to making sure that there's no barrier to access our platform. We can't, a core tenet of creating this company was removing barriers, and we understand that, budgets and those sorts of things don't always work on the same schedule that Crisis does. So we credit any agency the first year of that subscription. We also provide all of the marketing and donor engagement tools that we touched on there to help bring funds to our agency partners' doors. As Atlas mentioned, it also opens up opportunities for new grant opportunities or increases current grant opportunities for a lot of our agency partners. And then there are also some private grants that we've helped agency partners obtain as well. So we work really side by side to make sure that your agency is able to maximize its dollars in to help cover the cost of pet advocacy. So that's on the subscription side. And then on the other side, every night that a pet is placed with a BestyBnB pet caregiver, there's an $8 per night technology fee that is charged. That's not per pet, it's just per night. So whether you have one dog or two cats or 6 turtles placed with a pet caregiver, it's only that $8 per night technology fee. The other thing is, as we mentioned, our pet caregivers are able to donate their services or charge a discounted rate to our agency partners. And so that $8 is added on to that. So when you're looking for a pet caregiver, there's never any surprise charges when you go to confirm the booking. You're going to know from a budgetary standpoint exactly what it's going to cost to put that pet with that pet caregiver. We just want to really make this to help enable data-driven decisions for our agency partners. And, you know, as we mentioned, over 50% of our pet caregivers are donating their services to our agency partners, which means it's just that $8 per night stay. The average cost, pardon me, is just $13 per night. And that keeps creeping down. The more pet caregivers that come into the system and donate their services, that cost is coming down as well. So that's how that works, and certainly that's certainly an important topic, and we're always happy to discuss those off the call or offline in the forum.
Yeah, and just to follow up on that, at no point in time will an agency ever be turned away if they don't have the funds, even if it's after a year. We've made that our core mission, that any organization in the country, social services or animal welfare, that doesn't have a line item budget will, you know, they don't have to sign a contract. We just want to make sure, no matter what, that we're helping provide these services, and we're confident enough as a company that through partnerships, through some potential national animal welfare initiatives, we can get these licenses funded for our partners. That's a very big core mission of ours. Is we want this to be an opportunity to create more community engagement, more donor engagement, and not have to come out of pocket because everyone's already spread thin. So it's a true impact venture, and we're pleased to share it with you today. So thank you.
No, thank you. And this question from Lisa, this two-part question, touches on the safety concerns. So the question is, who holds the court paperwork to prove the animal is legally being held should the accused perpetrator come to the open admission shelter looking for a family pet, as this situation had occurred at their shelter? And they also speaking on the fundraising aspect, they don't really advertise partnerships or fundraise out of concern for safety of staff. So just wondering if you can speak to those at all.
Yeah, absolutely. So as far as the documents, the contracts that protect your agency and provided authority to act on behalf of that pet if the client is unwilling or unable to do so, that always lives with that client profile within the platform. So you would just go to your action menu that's on the client's profile. And when you click that, it pulls up a series of options. One of those is to view the contract. So you can always pull it up there and access it any way you need it. You can then save it locally to your machine as a PDF. You can print it off, put it in the physical file. We have agencies that handle that a little differently. The important thing to note is the platform is flexible enough to accommodate whatever policy and procedure works best for your agency. So in that instance, if you have physical client files and you want to have that document there and ready to be relied upon at a moment's notice, then that's certainly very easy to do. You could also pull it up on your mobile app and show anyone that needed it from that regard as well. Zoe, would you want to speak to the fundraising in that environment, since you just have a lot of firsthand knowledge in that? Not to throw you on the spot, but it's going to be more meaningful coming from you than me.
Sure. So my experience when working at the Domestic Violence Agency, it was extremely easy to fundraise for pet advocacy programs. And oftentimes the funds that were raised through that were able to spread out throughout the agency. There are often times where people are kind of like jumping to conclusions regarding survivors or the pet owner, and the pet is a really easy way to connect with folks in a judgment-free way. And so, while people may jump to conclusions of why, I think the biggest question that I got was, why does she stay? People don't jump to those conclusions or those questions when it comes to the pet. And so they really just want to be there to support that pet. I think the same thing can be said for, as Atlas mentioned, for animal welfare organizations, that we are all here. We really want to support animals, especially in this environment here. And as far as the safety concerns go, I think that we work really hard to ensure that confidentiality is really important to our agency partners as well as BestyBnB. One thing that I love about BestyBnB is that when somebody signs up to become a pet caregiver for a social service agency, their profile is not going to show on the public facing website. And so if I wanted to provide my services to the general public as a pet caregiver through BestyBnB, I certainly have that option and can show up on the public facing website. But if I don't, and I just want to show up to the social service partners or animal welfare partners that BestyBnB works with, those are the only agencies and only place that I will show up is in that network. I hope that answers the question about safety concerns. Working at a domestic violence agency, I definitely understand the concern for safety for staff. And so that can be another way where like you use a confidential location for pickup drop off, a location that is separate from your facility. And also those pets are never going to be advertised on a public facing platform. And so animals will never, or people, unless, word of mouth happens, those animals and people are never going to be notified that they're receiving services through your agency or through BestyBnB.
Okay, thank you so much. I think we have time for just one more question. We're being asked, are your services available anywhere from California to Canada?
Canada, we actually have had some conversations with folks up there. We don't have any agency partners there at the moment. We're really focused on expanding this effort in the US first. We do have an agency partner. We just had a really exciting launch in San Diego, where we launched with a domestic violence agency there. We also were able, through a partnership with a group called Bundle and Joy, based out of Arizona. They are funding safe nights for this domestic violence agency. They're also providing some starter packages for pet caregivers. So it's an example of a private company that is just an awesome woman-owned and founded natural pet food company, really going out of their way to help support agencies that are trying to help support pets and people and keep them connected and together. So that's our main presence in California right now. But all of that expansion that I kind of touched upon at the top with those 28 agencies in 8 states has really most of that has come in since April, since we were at Animal Care Expo and guests of the wonderful HSUS down there. So if we're not in your area now, we're ready and we're able to be there. And so we'd love to connect. If we don't have a presence in your community now, we'd love to explain more about how this blueprint works and how we can get it up and established with animal welfare and social services. So really is a community-wide engagement to help pets and people stay together.
Just to piggyback off that, we always tell our partners here, it can be so overwhelming thinking about creating a crisis care program. It just takes one administrator and one client needing services and one existing volunteer in that community to start small and then grow from there. And we have the ability from the technology standpoint. We've done this with the largest mental health provider in the state of Kansas. They called us in a crisis care scenario. And within 45 minutes, we set up their account, trained 3 of their staff members, and placed 3 pit bulls in one of our foster homes, all within 45 minutes. We're looking for our animal welfare partners to become anchors in each community. And then from there, we'll actively reach out with the direction and help of those same agencies to all social service providers, so we can create a community so all of that burden doesn't have to fall on one agency's kind of ledger, because everyone's spread too thin. So that kind of help and support is really a community-based approach to tackling this.
And we encourage everyone to go to Maddie's Pet Forum to continue the conversation and view some of the BestyBnB videos and resources. Thank you to all our speakers, Zoe, Andy, Matt, and Atlas, my co-host Charlotte, and to everyone for joining us. Have a great week and stay safe, everyone.